Bum bum bottom 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 bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bum bum bottom bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bum bottom bum bum bottom ba da 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 ba da
You are now in session with the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast. I'm Lisa Gullickson.
I'm Brad Gullickson.
And each month we evaluate a different iconic romance within the four-color realm. In this episode, we are traveling responsibly as members of the Guild of Independent Lady Temporalists through the Bermuda Triangle of the Upper West Side into our Creator Corner, talking to writer Alisa Kwitney about G.I.L.T from Ahoy Comics.
Ho,
No!
ho, ho,
Don't do
ho.
it! Stop it!
But this is it, Lisa. This is the big Christmas episode. This is the official Christmas episode. We're 2 days from Christmas. I gotta do the ho, ho, ho.
Is this how traditions are truly made? Like just the unmitigated persistence of one guy going like, no, he wears red and he comes down the chimney. And somebody else is like, really? The chimney again? Wearing red again? That happened last year. And he's like, no, every year. And everybody's like, I don't know about this. And then Coca-Cola is like, invest in that.
Polar bears. Yeah, that's exactly how holidays are made, Lisa, through one dude's persistence.
Yeah.
But as we said last week on the episode, we were going to do a gift exchange.
That's right.
We don't usually get each other big gifts.
We don't.
We tend to focus our energy and our money on gifts for others, mostly our family.
If you follow us on Twitter, we're actually buying ourselves gifts all of the time.
Yeah.
Every day is Christmas for the Gullicksons.
Yeah, totally. But this year we wanted to give each other a comic book related gift on mic.
Yeah.
So we have two packages here. One's for me, one's for you. They're totally wrapped in Christmas wrapping paper, not baby birthday wrapping paper.
You know what? Trees are a precious resource.
Yes.
We don't know how long they're going to last,
So
frankly.
I'm going to pass you the gift that I got you.
Oh,
and I'm going to pretend that
thank
you
you.
passed me the gift you got me. Here, yours is pretty darn heavy, actually.
I thought we were getting each other books.
Oh, yeah, books. Comics.
This doesn't feel like a book. Unless you put this book in a box. Did you put the book in a box?
I didn't put a book in a box,
Oh, okay.
but maybe somebody else put a book in a box.
Okay.
Now, who goes first? Birth order? I say birth order.
Birth order, so you get to go first?
Correct, yes.
What about proximity to birthday order?
No.
Because my birthday is very close.
No, your birthday is its own separate event and should be treated as such.
Okay.
We need to celebrate your birthday as a grand day. So
Separate
you
from
shouldn't
Christmas.
get any kind of like Christmas leakage into your birthday. And I feel like that would be Christmas leakage.
It is my birthday month, though.
Yeah, but
You can go first. You can go first.
I just want to go first.
Yeah, you can go first.
I'm older. I'm an only child.
You're
I'm gonna
closer to death. You have less things to enjoy than me.
Yeah, my hairline is receding.
Mine too, probably. Who knows?
No, it's not. Not like this,
Thanks.
guys. All right. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the deluxe hardcover of Our Encounters with Evil and Other Stories from Warwick Johnson Cadwell from Dark Horse Comics. I love the Our Encounters with Evil stories. They started off as a collaboration with Mike Mignola, but really Mike Mignola let Warwick Johnson Cadwell take these characters into weird and wild directions all on his own. The most recent one was Falcon Spear, and Warwick was on the podcast to talk about Falcon Spear with us.
That's right.
And we have the comics, but we don't have it in this really nice hardcover, Lisa.
But
Thank
now
you.
we do. I thought that this would be a good gift because my theory about giving gifts, and I know this extends from my being an Enneagram 4, and it's so important that you are seen as an individual and a person. But when I give gifts, I want it to be something that we both enjoy.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I mean that's my philosophy when I give gifts as well.
And I feel like I never would have found the Mignola-verse independent of Brad. But because of Brad, I read Hellboy, love Hellboy, and since then, like our love has blossomed, the Mignola-verse has blossomed.
Yeah, and like you couldn't imagine these stories coming out of the Mignola-verse back in the, I don't know, Conqueror Worm days. But I love that we're here now. And
Yeah.
Mignola also just put out like those Lenore vampire comics. I haven't
right.
read them yet, but I'm excited to read them.
I love my vampires.
But Warwick Johnson Cadwell, I think, is one of the most interesting cartoonists out there right now. He's obviously in love with old Hammer horror films, and that seeps into all of his work. And it's very much present in this volume, and it fits so nicely and snugly with Hellboy-like stories.
Yeah.
So thank you, my love.
I hope you enjoy it.
You know that I feel the same way about giving gifts because I'm an only child and I want to force my enthusiasms onto other people.
Yeah, because I think that a gift should be a bridge.
Yeah, and so you should think about that when you open your gift right there.
Okay, so this is what
is
I'm
your
opening is a bridge.
Yeah, what you're opening is a bridge.
Oh. Okay, here we go. Unwrapping.
How about that wrapping job?
I should do that closer to the mic so everybody gets the ASMR kind of like, yay. Okay, it's Ninja Turtles.
Yeah!
Oh, it's in a pizza box. It says the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Pizza Cookbook Gift Set.
Yeah!
Okay, so it's a book in a box.
And it has like an apron. And so it's a cookbook. It's a pizza cookbook.
How fun.
From the point of view of the Ninja Turtles. So like
Oh,
what...
look! There's even like little cookies, but they look like little pizzas.
Yeah.
Straight out of the sewers.
Yeah, and so I'm sure we could like do a vegan spin on all of those recipes.
Oh, yeah, because like pizza dough is, unless you're doing some kind of cheese-filled crust, pizza dough is inherently vegan. And then all you have to do is switch out the cheese.
Yeah. And I just love a gimmick where it's like, it's a pizza cookbook in a pizza box.
I am a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you like it?
I love it.
Yeah, and I
can't
love
wait
mine.
to start cooking. I can't wait to wear. Oh, this is too cool. I'll have to post a picture of me wearing this. Maybe I'll wear it for our Zoom call tonight.
Oh my goodness. Yes, you totally should.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dear Watchers and 10 Cent Takes. We're doing a Secret Santa gift exchange. And our gift has not arrived on our participants' doorstep yet.
Of all of the podcasts, they should know that we're the ones who cannot keep a schedule to save our lives.
I thought we were going to talk about how our schedule is all messed up, Lisa.
We won't go into detail, but
But I think that's a good place to transition away from our gift giving into our conversation with Alisa Kwitney. This is an interview that we've had in the can for a while and one we've been promising and hyping on the show for quite some time. And I'm really excited to get it out here. And I gotta say, I actually think this conversation fits well with Christmas time. Her comic, G.I.L.T, really does feel like it shares the same DNA as Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol, don't you think?
because she's going to her past.
Yeah, going back in time, confronting her old selves, or multiple people confronting their old selves, and recognizing the faults in the past and the faults in the present, and maybe being able to do something about, progressing, changing, coming to terms with who you are as a human being.
Sure, I'll walk that stretch with you, and I'll give you one further. I'll commit further than you. I will go so far as to say that Hildy is something of a ghost of Christmas future for Trista.
Yeah, totally. The title is G.I.L.T, G-I-L-T, and it stands for the Guild of Independent Lady Temporalists. It comes from Ahoy Comics, the same people who put out The Penultimate Man from Tom Peyer, who is also a former Sandman assistant editor. We've had two former Sandman assistant editors. That means we just need to get Shelley Roberg, a.k.a. Shelley Bond, on the show.
How fun would it be to have a full house of Sandman assistant editors?
It would be super fun. We got to make that happen.
Yeah.
Now, the plot synopsis of G.I.L.T reads as follows, right off of the website. G.I.L.T follows two very different women whose lives become entangled when they both slip through a portal in time to the day they first met in 1973. Trista is the Bill Murray of home healthcare aides, a cynical screw-up who doesn't care for anything but her Fluvog shoes. How do you say that, Lisa?
I don't know.
Fluvog?
I had never heard of them.
Very fancy schmancy shoes, and her paycheck. She meets her match in Hildy, a sarcastic second-wave feminist living on a steady diet of cigarettes and regret. When Hildy seizes her last chance to return to a fateful day in 1973, she accidentally takes Trista along for the ride. But as the old saying goes, there are no accidents in time travel, and Hildy and Trista don't remember each other, but they met each other 40 years earlier on Hildy's wedding day. Now they've got to come to terms with the past before they accidentally dismantle the future. Lisa and I loved G.I.L.T.
So much.
And I know a lot of people are putting together their best comics of 2022 lists. We're going to be doing a 2-part grand extravagant episode. 2 episodes. That's how a 2-part works. And I would recommend seeking out G.I.L.T. before you put those lists together.
G.I.L.T. is a tremendously satisfying read, especially if you are like me and you like stories that reward you for keeping track of a million teeny tiny different plot details and character nuances.
Yeah, your note-taking skills came in pretty handy with this book. I relied on them significantly.
Because this is like the best time travel stories. This is a story that folds in upon itself over several layers.
And works even better on the reread.
And helped tremendously by how likable and relatable her characters are. Hildy is the older character, and she is kind of hinging her entire discontent of her present on one decision of her past. And she goes like, if I could just go back in time and undo this one thing, my entire present would be different and better. And how many times, especially when we're in it, like the worst funk of funks, we go like, why did I major in music? Why didn't I major in anything else? And then I definitely saw myself in Trista, because Trista is a woman I see as being about my age, in her 30s. So I'm now in my late 30s.
We don't need to talk about that.
By
Lisa.
now, I mean, I'm turning 39 this week.
Congratulations. 39 is a great year. Embrace 39. Celebrate 39. Love 39, Lisa.
Trista is a person who's going like, yeah, I'm this home healthcare aide, but is that truly what I am? Is that truly my being? Is that my purpose on this planet? Like, can I call it a career if I feel like I want to get out of it at any time?
Yeah. We feel that real hard here in the Love Nest.
My dreams are bigger than my career, perhaps.
Absolutely. What I really responded to with this book, besides what you're saying, I totally agree with everything you're saying there, but that is all successfully communicated through Mauricet's incredible acting. The illustration in this book is deceptively intricate, right? Like when you look at it at first, you're like, oh, cool. It's typical sequential storytelling. The figures are easily discernible, but not overly complicated. But as you read the book and you pay attention to the expressions, they're really extraordinary. We talk about the acting in this book, but Mauricet's acting is top-tier stuff. And at times, you could easily just think you're watching a show. This feels like a TV series at times. These feel like actors, not drawings.
Yeah, it's like weird to be reading a comic book and going like, oh man, this is extraordinarily well cast.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we get in on that with Alisa Kwitney. We talk about the Bill Murray inspiration and why that's a little problematic these days.
Yeah.
Go read those headlines. We discuss the fantastical element driving the narrative. We also discuss why Alisa needed to explore herself using these particular characters. We talk a lot about the back matter of this comic book.
Yes, we finished this amazing book with this exceptional storytelling, and then she gives us something of a little bit of a masterclass with Mauricet about some of the work that went into creating G.I.L.T, along with some like tips and tricks about like, are you a plotzer or a pantser? How do you collaborate? How do you find a good collaborator? And I think that she's just a person who has had a really interesting career, and she realizes that what she's doing is aspirational.
Yeah, and would be an amazing teacher, right? You'd like to take Alisa's class for sure. I don't think we spoil the major twists and turns of the final few chapters of this
hope we
book.
didn't.
No, I know we didn't.
Okay, good.
But I would encourage folks to read the comic before listening listening to this conversation because I think you'll get more out of it. If you don't, I bet you will go back and read the comic because, Elisa's amazing.
She is.
And if you are here for the Sandman chatter, yeah, we get into Sandman. We talk about Morpheus. I will not spoil how we talk about Morpheus, but you're going to want to hang on to the end of this conversation. And I think we should just leave it there. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so take it away, Alisa Kwitney. And by take it away, I mean, Brad, reintroduce Alisa Kwitney.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
Alisa, thank you so much for joining Comic Book Couples Counseling. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is our absolute pleasure. We're very excited to talk guilt today. And I thought where we could start is with this idea. I read that you were disappointed with the climaxes of the Golden Girls and Sex and the City. And this story sort of begins as a correction or a revenge against those last episode finales.
Yes. I'm always devastated that the important people in pop culture never consult with me before doing things. Of course, with the Golden Girls, I would have been, I guess that was early 80s, mid 80s.
Yep.
So I was either, in high school or in college and probably not going to be consulted with anyway. But okay, so the last, spoiler alert for anyone just beginning to enjoy the glory that is the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls, by the way, are not in their 80s. They're in their 50s when the series starts. And these are a bunch of women who are living together and dating and having actually more sexual activity than I think there is on Sex and the City. So all of these women are together and enjoying all of their camaraderie. And you've got the three main women and the mother. But B. Arthur, who is the sardonic goddess, she would wipe the floor with Bill Murray. She is the one. And in the final episode, she gets married and leaves her friends and her mother. And
Ooh.
I'm just thinking, okay, there's so much wrong with this scenario, even though obviously B. Arthur wanted no more of this. And then as if no one, not having learned from General MacArthur's mistakes, they just went ahead and did Vietnam. It was sorry, that was a little Korean War reference. So then came Sex and the City, which ends with Sarah Jessica Parker's character. I did not give an introduction to Sex and the City. Sex and the City is basically, of course, for those of you who don't know from the 90s, the Golden Girls with women in their 30s, and they don't live together. That's it. That's what we can write an entire thesis on this, but okay. So then Sarah Jessica Parker, who's the linchpin character, her character gets married, and it made me realize there's so much wrong with this. It actually goes into a larger corollary of mine, which is we don't want sitcoms to end. We want them to end by not ending, because the joy of a sitcom is you can dip in a classic sitcom at any point. And so friends are allowed to get married as long as they don't frickin' move Chandler and Monica to the suburbs.
Right.
We want it to stay the same because life does not. So, and then in a more specific way, I thought, well, there's this fantasy I think a lot of us have that, we have this found family of friends, but they're just a stopgap until we find the one. And for a lot of us, you look back and you think, oh no, that circle of found friends, they were the ones. That was the moment. And I thought if B. Arthur and Sarah Jessica Parker could wake up, they would want to go back and undo, particularly, I think I'm going on for way too
please.
long about sitcoms.
No, do it.
I'm so sorry. I think about them. I feel about them. Just don't get me started on The Love Boat, which I realize is not a sitcom. But anyway.
I was just catching your tweets on The Love Boat. Some revelations I had that I was unaware of.
There's just a lot to unpack with The Love Boat that I never realized. But yeah, so in addition, on Sex and the City in particular, the character of Mr. Big always struck me as, can I use salty
Yes.
language?
Yes, please.
He just always seemed like an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of an asshole of the kind, if you know the show Bad Sisters, where there's a character called the Prick and everyone hates the Prick, he seemed like that character. So I don't want him to be redeemed and for her to marry him,
Right.
because this does not resemble life.
Right.
Characters
And
who are yeah.
Yeah, he was clearly a toxic person. And so to make the end of the story her ending up with this person who has been causing so much chaos in her life, like, just makes zero
It
sense.
felt like a betrayal.
It big time. Like another poor idea in those sitcom endings is the idea that when you get married, you're done. You know what I mean? Like you're married, you have found your solution. And I like that G.I.L.T starts with the like, okay, I got married. Turns out not the solution for me. And so she's kind of undoing what many would consider like a happy ending.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, there's, and I also think that the Carrie Bradshaw character she is the prick to another, there's that internet thing, am I the asshole? And perhaps, assholery is relative. You may be suffering from a relationship with an asshole, and yet you may be somebody else's asshole relationship.
Yes.
But all of that said and done, so the idea for G.I.L.T in part was to go back and try and undo what felt like a pivotal decision that was greatly wrong on an interpersonal level, and frankly wrong on a pop culture level too.
I personally love time travel stories, and like the more mundane the reason for the time travel, like the more excited I am. Like I don't care about going back in time and, killing Hitler or saving the world. I like going back in time and saving my parents' marriage, or like in Groundhog's Day, like curing someone from being the prick, I love that. And I think it's partly because when we have a crisis, the first solutions we always come up with are the solutions that are in the past, right? Like, oh man, if I had not, Hildy, if I had not gotten married, I wouldn't have had this huge diversion in what was a really wonderful time in my life. So like, I've read a little bit about like the initial inspiration, but can you talk a little bit about the temporal shift inspiration directly?
Sure. So, I mean, as with many of my ideas, I've lifted this from someone else. But I did something very different with it. And I loved The Time Traveler's Wife. I haven't seen the TV series. I actually haven't seen the movie because I loved the book so much, and I didn't want the movie in my head to be replaced by anything else. And I am weird this way.
Oh no, we get it.
100% the same way. Yeah. Every time we watch a film of something that we love, it does sort of leave, like, taint's too strong of a word,
Right.
but it's like a stain. Like, yes,
Yeah,
it leaves a stain on your original passion for the book.
Yeah, and it's hard to unsee the characters that once you've got actors, it's hard to get back to the character in your head.
You don't want to recast your imagination. Yeah.
But I love that book. I love the fact that the main character time travels only in his own lifespan. And that was the first time I had seen anyone do that technique. And I thought it was brilliant because it is the time traveling that we all do. When you're awake at night, replaying a failed love affair, the death of someone you love, all these big and little things, we time travel back in our own lifespan. It's not the magic treehouse time travel. It's it's wanting to either recapture something or redo something.
I think what's interesting about G.I.L.T, though, is when you go back in time, and I don't want to spoil anything, but when you revisit your past, you also create a new kind of chaos that could be dangerous for others. And as the book progresses, the characters sort of learn that being trapped in their mistakes, in their regret, is detrimental. And I'm curious about how you came to explore that theme and uncover it.
Oh, sure. Well, so I've always said I like my fantasy hard and my science fiction soft.
Mm.
So I I don't want to go into the mechanisms by which things happen, but I like things to be very, very grounded. And this is a side story, but I was once at a World Fantasy Convention and there was a party in somebody's room. Sorry, this is a long digression, but
I
No,
love
please.
it. Yes.
and I guess one of the roommates hadn't realized there was going to be an enormous party in his room because he comes in and he's shocked. And then he's like, all right, everybody, shut up, everybody, listen to me. What happens in this room stays in this room. And then there's this silence as everyone takes this in and tries to process it. And into it, I piped in and I said, I've never really liked Tolkien. Anyway, so there, that was my moment of, and I, for me, the world of Tolkien, rich as it is, just doesn't bear any resemblance to any world I know. And for me, I like fantasy that's very grounded in what I know. So I think about, what do I know about the past? Anyone who's lived longer than 5 years has probably had this experience. You remember something, and then someone says, oh, that's not the way I remember it, or that's not the way it happened. And they add something, or they have this other memory that comes before or after your memory that kind of changes it all. And you realize that you've only had a very partial memory. And if you were suddenly, pushed back into that moment, there would be all this stuff going on that you've edited out. And I'm not even talking about the stuff you didn't know that was behind the scenes, which is also interesting. I'm just talking about the stuff that was on stage, on screen. You were present, but you were just that's not what got saved in your file. So that is part of the true memory time travel that's sort of true to, I think, a lot of our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's what I call the chair at the swimming pool problem of vacation, which is, you think that there's a simpler time and that you'll go back to this time and things were better then. No cell phones, no, Donald Trump was just an amusing megalomaniac, whatever it is. But then you go back and, okay, so you're on vacation and you think, finally, no more schoolwork, no more job, no more whatever it is that occupies you. Now I can just relax. And quickly you begin to have a whole other weird set of worries. Mm-hmm. We've got to go get the croissant at the good cafe, but that's not where the good coffee is. So we need to get the good coffee. And if we do that, we're not going to have time for the museum and shopping. And these stupid concerns make you as tense as anything in the real world did. So that's my long-winded way of saying, I'm pretty sure that if I could go back in time to, the mellowest, easiest vacation of my life, I would realize that at the time I was obsessed with some other concern that I've edited out.
I'm fascinated by the idea of creators working out their concerns, their issues, their anxieties in their fiction, because that's how Lisa and I approach fiction. When we open up a book, we go looking for ourselves in that book. And I am curious, for you, is it a proactive thing that you are doing, or is it just a natural extension of yourself? When you are creating, of course you're going to be putting your anxieties in and trying to solve them for yourself.
I wouldn't say solve them, because the artifice, the part that is artifice, is that I have a plot and I kind of know where I'm going with it, which is the opposite of life. And I am a genre. I love genre. I love although I should say that my theory is that I am attracted to what is essentially kiddie horror, except I dress it up. But in kiddie horror, your main point of view character, who is not a bad person, does not, get beheaded.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so you can have as much body horror as you like. You can even have some good people suffer, but as long as the moral universe, remains more or less intact, it's kiddie horror. So I like kiddie horror. I love rom-com. I love villanelles and sestinas. I love all that artifice. And once you've got a lovely artificial construct, I think it's so fun to make it look as gritty and real as possible. It's kind of like having a musical. Once you know that you're in a musical where everyone's going to sing their feelings, you can get as gritty and subversive as you like, because it's still this lovely construct of the musical, kind of like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, a good example of a musical rom-com hybrid that plays with all kinds of psychological things. I'm assuming that those creators, they explored things, but not things that were currently eating them up. Like they had to do the psychological work already in order to crack it open. I think it's really hard to both psychoanalyze yourself in real time and turn it into, forget art, even craft.
Mm.
One of the things you just brought up musicals, and it made me think of like when I never got cast when I was in high school and doing high school musicals. I never got cast in like a leading role. I would always have a very small role, and then I would be chorus the rest of the time. And so when you're on stage and you're in high school, you come up with all your own like little micro plot of like what's happening. And in G.I.L.T, there's like 700 micro plots going on. You can totally, Where's Waldo, get lost in this book. And I love everything you included in the back matter, the little tidbits about creating comics. And you were talking about the difference between a plotter, a pantser, and then you are the hybrid, the plotzer. And I was wondering, like, where you have your like outline, but then you go by the seat of your pants around that plot, that outline, and then you kind of join the two. And I was wondering, like, does that creative process of like, okay, I have an outline, but I'm not married to it, does that inform kind of the way that you also live your life? Are you like a plotzer in life as well?
I am a complete plotzer in life. And I do a lot of chaotic, quick revising. I have not one or two, but 3 different books in which I usually try and plot out what I'm supposed to be doing. But at my heart, I am a disorganized improviser. And so I don't know. And then I acquire chaos. I have a dog who's 80 pounds and headstrong. And I thought, this clearly requires a puppy. And, people suggested I get a really low key puppy, but I thought, no, another working dog that spends all its time trying to figure out problems on its own. So I invite chaos into my plotsing process.
I really felt represented by the character of Trina in her like kind of like listlessness, where she does Trista in her listlessness, where she's like she has jobs, but she doesn't like have like a career, in like the more like traditional sense of the word. And I was just wondering what was the inspiration for creating this, like, because she's like totally like, I'm like, okay, I recognize a millennial when I see one, you know what I mean? Like that's me. So can you talk about her character a little bit?
Oh, sure. So I had been doing improv, and I was for a while part of, this is embarrassing. Is this like embarrassing that, admitting you were in an improv troupe is like the new admitting you're in therapy. Now no one's embarrassed by therapy, so anyway, I was part of an improv troupe, and I had this wonderful teacher, Samantha Jones. And, one of the things she would say is, have an attitude, a strong attitude about any choice you make. So, if I am coming on stage and I'm a kindergarten teacher, let's have a really strong attitude, either, love it or hate it. So I was having a little trouble with Trista. I think, originally she was not a slacker. And she just, I kept thinking, she's not interesting. Something is not clicking here. And then I could hear Samantha's voice saying, have an attitude. And I thought, she's Bill Murray. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Now I feel kind of guilty saying that.
Yeah, no,
It's
okay.
complicated.
It's but I was thinking about a female Bill Murray who is, partially just sardonic and screwing up and protecting herself, but also, there is an element of absurdist detachment to her that, even if she were amazingly successful, she would still contain that. I guess Aubrey Plaza would have been the female version, but for some reason Bill Murray is what popped into my head.
I think why Bill Murray works so perfectly, like if we just release this, if we could go back in time and release this episode a
6
couple of months
ago, yeah.
is that even if he doesn't have the answer, he's still right, which might be key to the toxicity. But where like, just like marriage is not an answer, like that's like, you're not done when you have a marriage, you're also not done when you have a career. Like Trista's life is like, she can have a completely happy and fulfilling life and never have a career. It's optional perhaps.
But she gave up. So I'll do a little spoiler, because we have, one of the trends in modern writing is you have almost no flashbacks. And it's considered that flashbacks are, definitely a cheat, and they take the plot in the wrong direction. And certainly if you're doing time travel, there's no reason to have a flashback, except I should say G.I.L.T is filled with flashbacks. And one of them is with Trista. So we see that she was for a while a journalist. It was what we see other careers of hers as well. And she's with a rock star of the time, and gets completely distracted and ends up having a fling with him, rather than, I would think, completing the article. And I think that I gave her that. It's the plotzer part of me. There was a plan. I'm letting go of the plan now and following this new plan. And I also thought that there was something deliciously young about that attitude that, doesn't serve her now that she is no longer in her first youth, shall we say.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the reasoning of bringing Trista into the story in the first place, because you could have told G.I.L.T just from Hildy's perspective and her relationship with her friends and wanting to escape Mr. Man. What was the compulsion to bring the younger character into the story?
I can't remember exactly how it started. That I think originally she was going to be more of a foil character, and then I realized it was a real two-hander. But I think the inspiration, I think it was two things. So one, I've been thinking a lot about comedy and how do you get comedy on the page? And, I think it's a lot about character interactions and that conflict. And so, yes, you've got that with Hildy and her friends, but having Trista, it sets up like The Odd Couple. You've got characters whose goals really, they're each other's antagonists. And so that creates a strong, it creates a lot of material psychologically and for comedy. And then the older I get, the more I love an ensemble cast, just in terms of what I'm reading and what I'm watching. I think that, for a while, everyone was so into YA, and I realized I've begun to feel claustrophobic in just one person's head.
I love the dynamic of Hildy and Trista, because Hildy has tried to undo this marriage a handful of times, and she has always failed. And sometimes I feel like in my life, I behave better if I'm in a mentoring position where you feel that kind of social pressure to go okay, I do actually have to follow through with this, because I have to be a good example for this other person. So I think it also, for me as a reader, added that element of okay, now Hildy has to be on her best feminist behavior because there is this young woman here.
Accountability.
Yeah, there's that level of accountability there.
Yes, I think that's true. There's also, I think about there've been a lot of bromantic films. Not as many traditionally, I don't know, romance, where you've got that buddy romance dynamic. And I think, I find it really interesting. So you've got rom-com energy where there's always a best friend who's there to be supportive. But I mean, friendship is so much more complex and interesting, and has these different seasons. And I think that, I've again, I'm a genre person. I love romance, but I've begun to think how many of the tropes of romance also work for buddy romance. And you get a lot of the satisfaction. You don't get the clinch, I guess, but short of that, you get so much of the energy. And in my life, and I think in a lot of people's lives, our friends and those connections we have even across generations, they offer a lot of zest and sometimes angst.
And friendships are so conditional, where like if you're in a romantic relationship, you do like weirdly feel this obligation to like, okay, to win, we have to keep this going. Where like it like with a friendship, like you go like, oh man, she's dating my ex now. So let's slowly walk this friendship back. So I love the friendship between Hildy and Trista, but I also love the example of the friendship with her two original friends, her two bridesmaids, because they are kind of in this flux of like, do we keep this friendship going? Is this like under these conditions, can our friendship still like maintain itself?
And that's also, I mean, it's funny because there was definitely inspiration from Sex and the City and the Golden Girls, but it's also deeply personal. So my mom got divorced in the 70s, and she had two best friends. And the two best friends, Peggy and Edie, we, all the combined families of these divorced women and the kids, we would do Thanksgivings together. We would, our moms, would it was an extended family. And Edie ended up unfortunately dying young. But I watched how, over the years, the families grew closer together, grew more distant. And so that was sort of part of the inspiration, I think, is that especially when marriages or romantic partnerships break up, then friendships sometimes really do fill that void in a different way.
Well, you have circled narrative from many different aspects, comics, novels, YA, also as an editor, also as a podcaster, exploring Sandman from your very unique perspective. Can you talk a little bit about how approaching stories from so many different angles has sharpened your own storytelling?
Oh, thank you. I think I started out writing. So my early influence, my father, Robert Sheckley, was a science fiction writer known for humorous short stories, and was considered an uncredited influence on Douglas Adams, although Douglas Adams insisted this was not the case. So my dad was not on the scene, but my earliest influences were a lot of his short stories. And I was reading them, before there was YA, you just picked up whatever was in the bookshelf. And so I was reading a lot of science fiction and comics. And then, weird historical fiction like Frank Yerby. And so I tried writing all of it. And I think, some things I was naturally better at than others. I've always longed to do long historical, Game of Thrones type fiction. I am not sure that it is my sweet spot, but I think that I heard voices more, and I wasn't as visual a writer. And then in my 20s, I started to work as a staff editor, first as an assistant editor on The Sandman. And then and then I became a full editor. I was also writing for comics. And I had to learn how to be more visual. And then I also teach, and I love teaching. So I tried to break down what I'd learned to do. And I thought of it like this. Sometimes you have to give yourself an assignment. You say to yourself, today, I'm a casting director. And what would I need to ask for actors or actresses trying out for this role? Because you wouldn't want to rule out. I think if you think about casting, it's a great way of only finding the telling details about the character and not, like she had very thin lips or her hair was the shade of blonde, because that isn't really the most important thing. Or then I would say to myself, okay, now I'm an art director, I'm a location scout, and I would try to break down the some people do it naturally. I do not do these things naturally. So I learned that. And then anytime that I see something or read something that I love, I think, how can I steal that? So I Fleabag obsessed me. And I found everything I could find about Phoebe Waller-Bridge talking about writing. And the thing that really struck me is she talked about audience, and she talked about using humor to soften people up and then sucker punch them with something very serious. And then, bring them back into humor. And that was, obviously not that long ago, but I constantly feel like I am trying to learn things or sometimes relearn things that maybe I knew as a writer. But yeah, whenever I'm doing more comics, I think about the visual, and I think about all that we can learn from the visual. And by the way, having an artist like Mauricet, Alain is his real first name, works with me in a very collaborative way. And so that informs it, because, I think it's hysterical to have somebody open up a medicine cabinet and find a diaphragm with a cobweb on it.
Right.
But, you have to have someone really committed to details about that. And to me, there's humor, but there's also discomfort, because I think as a culture, we're we're very committed to exploring the sexuality of, disturbingly young characters, but we don't often want to acknowledge the ways in which older people were and maybe are still sexual beings.
I gave Brad and I have an under the table like thing that we do when we're doing interviews where I'm like, tap, I have a question, like that kind of thing. And I tapped, and now I have two questions in my head at the same time.
Have at it.
Okay, the first one, and so you can pick one or both. It's up to you. I'm giving a smorgasbord of options. So the first thing is, I love what you said about, being a casting director, because I do find this book to be exceptionally well cast, and well acted.
Yeah.
And you did such you and Mauricet did such a great job of really creating women who look like real women, and distinctly different, in a way that I found so inspirational. They look like people from the grocery store, where in comic books it's like you get a lot of samey types. So that process of finding those faces would be question number one. Question number two,
and bodies,
yeah. Yes. And question number two is completely tangential, and it is Hildy's fiance or in some timelines husband and other timelines ex, whatever, is
Mr. Man.
Yes, there was a self-help guru character. Yes, and this is comic book couples counseling, and so we do read a ton of self-help books, and I love the taking of the kind of predatory aspect of it, especially in the 70s, where women are going okay, time to be feminist. How do I do it right? Let's ask this guy, So I would love to know your inspiration for that self-help guru.
That's a lot.
Character. I know.
Oh, sure.
It's terrible form.
No. All right. Let's see. Starting with the bodies and the faces. Alain and I both delight in character work of this kind. And so we'll talk about who are the inspirations, and we'll go back and forth. And it was really important to me that the characters dress in ways that were sort of fun and funky, so that it's a little more glamorous. I mean, as you can see me sitting, I'm wearing, I have a million t-shirts, but I wear 3 of them. And and I have a million flannel shirts and I wear all of them. So in my real life, I basically dress in dog hair and flannel. But I love the idea of costuming and all of that with the women. And Alain's interest in acting and the pacing of things is a huge part of what makes G.I.L.T funny, because I can't write funny with an artist who's just, not going to pick the right expression or micro expression and divide things. Alain loves doing lots of panels for timing, and I write and rewrite my scenes for the repartee timing. But sometimes he'll see another way of doing it, and then I'll go back and I'll tweak the dialogue. So this is all, we do a lot of acting stuff. I keep sending him back to watch more Golden Girls, because I have to say, it's just one of the great shows. And I discovered it only recently, because in the 80s, I wasn't interested in watching women in their 50s.
There's been a resurgence of that show.
Big time.
Yeah.
You can't throw a rock and not hit some merch, some Golden Girls merch.
Oh, there's, and I for once I am in agreement with the culture. Okay, so now Mr. Man. So originally he was going to be sort of based on Mr. Big in Sex and the City. And I was also thinking of what's his name? Is it Eckhart Tolle or Werner Eckhart?
Yeah.
And then there's another character. So he's actually a friend of the family that I grew up with, Warren Farrell. And so I was thinking, I actually know him. And I was thinking about trying to create a character that is charismatic, that is a bit of a showman, but I didn't want him to be just evil. I realized that part of my goal with this character is he never says anything which I would consider wrong. So if you go back, it's kind of easy to. So if you look back at everything that the Mr. Man character says, he's never just wrong or mistaken, or the stuff that he says is actually kind of supportive. And still, for Hildy, he is an asshole, and probably for some of the other characters as well. And but there are a lot of characters that were minor characters that grew into their roles, and maybe that's part of thinking in ensemble terms. I had one whole section of the book where I was a little surprised by the situation I'd gotten myself into. I thought, oh, I know what happens now. This character is going to be impacted in this way. And I wrote it, and then I was stuck for a week. And finally I said, that was the wrong choice, wasn't it? And so I went back and realized, I'm trying to say this without spoilers, but if you look at the names of my characters, it looks like I would have known throughout the way things should go, because it looks like that was a deliberate choice. But that was only my subconscious, which knew what it was doing, while my conscious was blundering around like an imbecile.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Before we get out of here, we promised ourselves we'd ask you about Sandman.
I love talking about Sandman.
Lisa and I are currently, one of our podcast projects is we're reading the comic one issue at a time, one episode at a time.
Oh,
and we're
fantastic.
48 issues in. I have never read the comic before.
I read it in college, but that was like so long ago. So I barely remember it. Like for me, like Sandman was like fever dream.
Can I just say that Neil, I've known Neil since the 90s. And at one point he started sending me the scripts, and reading the scripts, reading the comics again, I also informed some of G.I.L.T, because that idea of having all of these nooks and crannies and all of these different avenues and things that you could explore further, that was, it really helped to be reading Sandman at that time.
Yeah, it's awesome that you say that, because you like we were saying earlier, the G.I.L.T has so many moments in it that could spin off into
whole other
universes. Yeah, like the pilots. I want
Yes,
a
I
comic
wanna get a
about the pilots, you know?
Oh, can I just say, so
Yeah.
I got Neil to read G.I.L.T, and he's been very enthusiastic about it. And but he said, I love this, but you've crammed about 12 issues worth of material into 5 issues. So
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But I say bonus.
Yeah. Director's cut.
And so
Long form.
one of the things that Lisa and I have kind of delighted on as we've been reading the Sandman issues is like just tracking the credits of every issue, and then watching the transitions of the assistant editors. And our listeners are the professionals. They
Yeah.
really know what's going on behind the scenes, but we've told them, like, don't
Try not to spoil stuff
don't
for us.
spoil anything for us. Don't tell us who went to where and why they're doing what. But I was wondering, like, if you could just relate a little bit about what it's like now. And we haven't listened to your podcast because we're in the middle of ours, but we do plan to. But what it's like now to reflect on that with your partner in the podcast, and like look back and realize, or at least come from a point of view where the Sandman has now become
you're
Sandman.
your own little temporal shift.
Yeah, it seems very stressful.
it has been strange. I mean, one of the things that's been lovely for me to talk about with Lonnie, but I've also gotten a chance to talk about it with Neil, is how my read of Morpheus has changed. So, and my son is watching it, and he's 27, and I said, how old do you think Sandman is? Just as a mythical creature, but also if he were in his lifespan. And my son said something like, I don't know, 40.
Oh, dear God.
And I thought to myself, I don't know how old he seemed to me in the 90s. He seemed sort of ageless, but endless. But now he both seems like an immortal character, and he also seems thoroughly in his 20s. And all of them, with the exception of Death, who's, the Monica of the Endless, she seems to have her sense of self more developed. But whether it's Desire's sibling rivalry, Morpheus's epic grudge holding, there's all these, and obviously some people remain this way throughout their life, but I think part of it is I see them as going through a younger, psychologically they seem younger, and I mentioned that to Neil, and he said, oh, absolutely. Because, but we have different themes that run through different, you're either in your Midsummer Night's Dream phase or your King Lear phase. Just life has different resonances. So that, I don't mean to say anything belittling about it. Those are, vital and important issues. But yeah, I just wait, I was going to say something else about the 90s versus now, which is there was a messy unexpectedness when I was reading Sandman, because I knew that it was coming out. It was sort of, Neil at times felt like an oracle, because he didn't know precisely what he was going to do next. And I know this because I had to get the next issue blurb for the letter column. And I'd say, I need to write something. And he says, well, I don't know it yet. I said, you got to give me something. And I think I made him write one of the issues because he, blurbled something and then was tracked to it.
Yeah.
But I think that there was a feeling of improv about it. And now both the whole shape of the thing, and and now you have a more mature creator coming back. It's like that. I forgot the name of this famous piano player, and I'm doing piano player fingers, who's famous for doing, I think it's the Goldberg variations, as a young man, and then towards the end of his career, and it's the same piece of music.
Glenn Gould?
No.
Glenn Gould's an actor.
Yeah, no. It'll be in the notes.
It'll be in the notes. So sorry, long-winded answer.
Love it. I have one thing to say. I see something on your. Shh. What my main difference with so I read it when I was like 18 or 19, and reading it now is like I saw Morpheus as so fuckable. I thought he was so hot, so dreamy, so he's so deep. And now I read it, I'm like, oh man, he's a handful. He's got to get he's got to work his empathy a little bit more before he can lie with this.
I have that with Hob Gadling. I kept thinking oh man, I totally want to date Hob Gadling. That old, dying smugs game. And and now I just think, we're all mugs.
Oh my God. Yeah. We're one issue away from completing Brief Lives. Here's Brad from the future with a quick spoiler warning. We're going to spoil some minor things regarding Sandman Brief Lives. And that arc in particular has radically altered my impression of Morpheus, but also just the endless, and maybe they are in their 40s rather than being these immortal beings like I thought they were. And it's been so much fun revisiting it. So thank you for indulging us and talking a little Sandman with us.
Wait, can I just say that
Yes.
in a weird way, I sometimes think that the whole Harry Meghan drama is kind of like the Endless.
Oh no. Okay, elaborate.
I'm okay. I have to do it in a non-spoiler way. Well, one of the big themes of Sandman is duty and family versus individual freedom and the ability to pursue your own path. And I'm just looking at the whole Harry, Meghan, Oprah nexus, and I'm thinking it's kind of funny to me. I now see Sandman themes writ, kind of it's in a non-fantasy way.
Interesting.
I right now we're on the main feed. We're also talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so sibling dynamics is like always on my mind nowadays. But like with the Endless and with Destruction in particular, like I do feel those same pressures.
A redhead,
of like
who's a redhead?
like silly. So like I'm the one who's like let why isn't everybody fulfilling their roles right now? Like I'm a little bit more like Morpheus in that it's just like, okay, we agreed all at birth to do this the rest of our lives together.
And now I'm like, oh my God, should I not have said that about
no, it's okay.
About Destruction? Oh, wait,
we've met him.
We've met him.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think you should give a spoiler alert for people listening to this.
We will.
We said his name and everything.
Oh yeah. The Prodigal. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Have you guys seen Bad Sisters?
No, I have not.
I'm aware of it, but I have not watched it.
If you ever want to do a special episode about Bad Sisters, you've got, family dynamics gone bad. It's wonderful. So
I love that stuff.
All right. Coming away with some recommendations. That's pretty great. Alisa, thank you so much for chatting with us. Obviously, we loved G.I.L.T.
Yes.
a lot, and we're excited for the G.I.L.T. universe.
Yes.
The expanding G.I.L.T. universe.
Well, how's that little French boy doing?
He grows up to be a comic book artist.
Oh.
Felt there was I just want to say that I put that in because there's so much of my childhood in this. I had to make sure that Alan got in too.
Amazing. I love it. I just made that connection.
I did that. I laughed like I understood what she was talking about, and then I felt the snap.
Thank you for making that connection. That's awesome. Okay. All right. Awesome. Alisa, so before you depart, where can our listeners find you? They can find you in the show notes because all the links are there. But in case they don't read those show notes, where can they find you?
Well, for the time being, I'm on Twitter at A Kwitney. I am, by the way, the only person who didn't notice the blue check. Everyone's like, well, to be verified. I'm like, there's a thing called verified. I'm just fool.
We have been chasing verification like it really means something. And now all of a sudden we're like, okay, walk it back. And it's apparently way cooler to not think that the check is cool.
Well, there I am. I guess it's like prostitution because, if you pay for it, it's
then it's
the
not
same thing.
It's not worthwhile.
But yes. Okay. I think I'm on Instagram, but I don't do anything on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I'm less and less there. But yeah, so Twitter has been the main place that I've been, in as much as I'm anywhere. But just walk your dog a lot in the Hudson River Valley, you'll probably run into me.
All right, we'll be on the lookout.
I'm googling the Goldberg variations because I was a music major and I don't. Glenn Gould.
It was Glenn
It
Gould.
was Glenn Gould.
Uh-huh.
Not you. I was the one who said Gould, and you just named an actor.
Yeah, no, Elliot Gould. When you said it wasn't Glenn Gould, I was like, oh my, Elliot Gould.
Okay.
I knew Gordon Gould, who is an actor who is the father of one of my friends, and he was in Amadeus. And in the 80s, and when I was in high school, I went to a party with like all the cast members of Amadeus. And I
So
don't
cool.
remember anything about it.
Oh, that's a shame. That you need to
know.
temporally shift, go back. I love Amadeus. That's another one where you like watch it in high school and you're like, oh man,
Amadeus.
Mozart is so fuckable. And then as an adult, you're like, oh no.
Oh my God. I now I need to listen to, I like that you're thinking about who is fuckable, because that
fully.
is so much. I mean, all of Richard Armitage, I'm
yeah.
constantly, because of him, I find Georgette Heyer fuckable.
Yeah, that's the entire reason I read comic books. Like, I'm not in it for like the fights or that. I'm like, who's doing it? That's why I love X-Men. It's just like everybody all the time.
Yes, I discovered X-Men, the most fuckable team.
Yes, there's someone for everyone, at least one.
Oh, that's so true. Oh my gosh, Alisa, thank you so much.
We can talk to you all day.
Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll definitely have to have you come back on for our Bad Sisters episode.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I would love that. You guys are amazing, and I'm going to start listening to you.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Lisa, all that Morpheus effability conversation. Woo, steamy.
Well, we're not comic book family counseling. We're comic book couples counseling. And sometimes the conversation gets a little adult.
I just really appreciate that Alisa went there with you. Clearly, by the end of that conversation, we were feeling pretty comfortable and conversational. And you just were like, yeah, no, we're going to talk about it.
I think there is something to the like little emo girl who lives inside all of us, crushing on the tall, mysterious guy who's throwing red flags left and right. And we're like, no, we're still on this ride.
What I love about Alisa is that she is still clearly as much of a fan as she was when she was working on Sandman. And she doesn't feel like one of those insiders who's heard it all and is kind of tired of the masterpiece that they were associated with. Clearly, because of her podcast, she's still all about exploring all the avenues of Sandman, and that includes the effability of Morpheus.
Yeah, I love the idea of going like, I can be a participant and I can be a fangirl.
Yeah.
Those can coexist. And I think to celebrate it, I would like to rank the Endless from most effable to least effable, and look out, Destiny. You're going to get your feelings hurt.
Oh.
Yeah, least effable, way down at the bottom.
Below Despair?
Yeah. Oh, shit. I forgot about Despair. Despair is at the bottom.
Okay.
Just because she's sad. And
Yeah.
I think she needs to get
I don't think Destiny would be good in bed because he knows how it's going to end.
Or he knows how it should end. and he has that, like, because, Delirium is like, everything you know isn't inside that book.
Is Morpheus at the top, or is it actually Delirium, or is it actually Death? Death's at the top for Brad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Brad. Death's at the top. This is getting real personal. Is Death where?
So here's mine.
Okay,
here's
let's
mine,
do it.
because mine
Let's
is
do it.
ready.
All right.
Well, clearly it wasn't. I haven't thought this through.
Lies.
Most effable to me is Morpheus.
Okay.
Followed by Desire.
Okay.
Followed by Death.
Okay. Then Delirium.
Then Delirium.
Okay.
Then Despair. And
No.
then Destiny.
No, what about Destruction?
Oh, I forgot
The
Destruction.
Prodigal Son?
Oh, shit. Oh, we don't swear on the main feed. Okay, let me do that again. Okay. Yeah, so I would put Destruction before Delirium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Delirium is, she's
You like that
fragile.
red beard?
Yeah, I do like it. I do like a beard sometimes.
Oh, lassie.
Like to mix it up.
You made me shave.
I did because it was chafy.
Because it's hard to get beyond, like the way my beard works is it's like a bunch of fly hairs and they become really rock hard and pointy. It's hard to get beyond the razor bladed nature of my beard.
Yeah, it was sharp.
Very sharp.
Sharp.
Only once have I gotten beyond that stage, and it's
It's because he had broken both of his elbows, so he couldn't shave.
Correct. All right. Well, we now know Lisa's ranking.
What's Brad's ranking?
I mean, Death's at the top, and then Morpheus, and then it's the
jealous of
same
Death.
after that, right? I think that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody wants a kiss on Death.
I know, manic pixie dream death.
And with that laundry aired, I think we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to those that celebrate. Happy Hanukkah. Just a happy general holiday feeling to all our listeners.
Yeah.
We've had a wonderful 2022. It's hard to believe we're at the end. I actually think this will be our last episode of 2022. I know we made some promises about getting our best of 2022 episode and our last Ronin episode out before the new year. It's just not going to happen, friends. That is how we are going to kick off 2023 with our two-part extravaganza celebrating the best comics of 2022 because it really was a banger year. And like last year, we're going to have a whole host of special guests join the show to tell us their favorite comics from the year as well.
Our end of the year extravaganza is always a really special episode, and we are still panicked reading comics, not wanting to miss anything that's really good.
I gotta get Friday Volume 2 in your hands before we record those episodes.
It's in the stack, and I have already finished Volume 1, so
Okay.
now I am prepared to read
2.
Volume 2.
It gets even better.
I'm so excited for myself. And then we're also working on our last Ronin episode to close out our TMNT arc.
Yeah, I've loved exploring the Ninja Turtles, and even though the last Ronin episode is probably going to be our last Turtle episode for a while, unless we get a special guest star that we're still working on, but I also think that even when we conclude with the last Ronin, and whether or not we get that special guest star, they're a series that we will return to again in the future. 4 episodes on the Ninja Turtles is not enough to discuss their relationship dynamic.
And then we have a Creator Corner episode coming up with Kelly Thompson and Meredith McLaren talking the Black Cloak.
That comic, we've read the first 3 issues. So good. Very excited for that book to get out there in the world. Maybe the first great book of 2023.
Who's to say, besides us, because it's our show.
It reminds me of when Monkey Meat came out on the first Wednesday of January, the Judy Baugh comic. And you're like, oh, that's going to end up being on the top 10 list. So Black Cloak could be a similar situation.
Then on January 29th, you guys are all going to come hang out with us at the Alamo Draft House Winchester for our screening of Howard the Duck with 4 Color Fantasies. It's going to be a party. We have so many gifts for y'all.
Yeah. We're going to have a trivia contest before the screening. We will be giving away a Marvel Legends What If version of Howard the Duck, the action figure, plus classic Howard the Duck magazine issues.
And we have pins for the first 25 people who arrive.
No, I think it's the first 50.
First 50. We're calling our shot.
Yeah. We've sold 20 tickets already.
Yeah.
There are plenty of seats left. Get on them now.
Yeah, we're sitting in the second row if you want to
Second
know.
row.
That's where we like to sit.
And if you're a patron,
you
get in for free. Your ticket is on us.
But you have to ask for it.
Yeah. Several people have already asked. They're getting their tickets.
Yeah. Oh, man. We have so much to do, so little time. Brad,
What?
do you know what would really help this situation?
No.
A little time travel. Do you want to go to the Upper West Side with me?
I sure do.
Let's go. Where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
You can find me on all social medias at MouthDork. If you have words of affirmation for our logo, you can send them to Aaron Prescott at A Cool Hand Fluke. And if you have some words of affirmation for our radical banner art and show posters, send them to Karen Charm at Karen_X-Men fan. Lisa, where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
I am always accepting words of affirmation at Sidewalk Siren on Instagram and Twitter and Hive. It's back up. If you'd like to spend more quality time with us, you can subscribe to us on Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Google, and Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to get exclusive, you can join our Patreon, where you'll get more content, including weekly bonus episodes.
If you'd like to reach out and touch us electronically, you can email the podcast, cbccpodcast@gmail.com. You can visit our website, comicbookcouplescounseling.com, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Hive Social at CBCC Podcast.
You can give us the gift of 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and if you'd like to do an act of service, why not write a review of the show while you're there? We are fluent and receptive in all 5 love languages. It really warms our hearts and helps the pod.
So until next time, friends, keep your love tank full.
And your psychic rapport open. You are now in session with the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast. I'm Lisa Gullickson.
I'm Brad Gullickson.
And each month, we evaluate a different iconic romance within the 4-color realm. In this episode, we are traveling responsibly as members of the Guild of Independent Lady Temporalists through the Bermuda Triangle of the Upper West.
I was going to be so impressed if you got this right on one
I
go.
know, and I felt you being impressed, and my self-sabotaging tendencies kicked in.
Well, good. You sucked it up that first round. Let's see if you can do it well on the second round.
I got the clap.